Deirdre, thank you very much indeed. That was a super synopsis of Walter Scott's association with Edinburgh, and we're very grateful to you. Thank you very much, and please give the Lord Provost our best wishes. Each year, ladies and gentlemen, it is the custom of the club to invite a representative of one of the many societies and bodies with which Sir Walter was associated to join us at our annual dinner tonight. I'm delighted to welcome Colonel Andrew Campbell, the secretary of the new club. Sir Walter was elected by acclamation to this most distinguished club for life on the 1st of February 1830, after the dissolution of the Albine Club, and he was invited to attend a convivial meeting of this club in honour of his admission. We have held most of our meetings in this club for some years now, and it's here where we have enjoyed our annual dinners for several years past. So I'm delighted to ask you to rise and drink a toast with me to the new club. The new club. Thank you very much. Well, I'm very pleased now to ask Colonel Andrew Campbell, once an Argyll and Sutherland Highlander, now secretary of the new club, to respond to our toast. Andrew.
Thank you for that toast to this club. I was asked to touch on some areas of interest on the connections between our two organisations. Now, Sir Walter was a first for the club, and not just, as we have only one marble bust in this club. On the staircase as you go downstairs, you should be familiar with it. It is, of course, a copy of the bust by Sir Francis Chantry, which sits in Abbotsford of Sir Walter. Some 43 years after the club was established in 1787, the minutes of the Management Committee of the 1st of February 1830 state, Lord Duncan then stated that he had to make a proposition which was contrary in precedent, but that it was one of such a nature as never, in all probability, on any future occasion would form a precedent. Now, in fact, we did have one or two more honorary members later on, and I'll mention one at the end. And he then said, as he had to propose that Sir Walter Scott should be elected an honorary member of the club, which he duly was. It was then proposed that Sir Walter was invited to attend a convivial dinner to take place in honour of his admittance. But there is no record of that happening. But a committee was set up to organise this dinner, as committees are set up in this club on many occasions to organise anything. But why was he asked? Was the club a literary organisation? We have, like a number of our large reciprocal clubs in London, a library. But our library hardly matches the splendour of the Athenaeum, the Travellers, or the Reformed clubs, or indeed Abbotsford's library. When we were founded in 1787, we having a library in a tavern was probably not a high priority, and it was only in 1853, some 66 years later, that the, quote, desire to establish a library was expressed. But the committee did not feel that a large general library was required and recommended that a trial be made, chiefly of books of reference. Now, I might add, I don't take the view of my distinguished military predecessor, who felt that as he had once read a book, there's no need to overdo the pleasure by repeating the act. Was it because Scott was a borderer? He would certainly have heard of the Caledonian Hunt. Now, why is this relevant? The Caledonian Hunt, founded 10 years before the new club, was an association of noblemen and country gentlemen who shared a common interest in field sports, races, balls, and social assemblies. And in its first years, the membership was drawn from the landed gentry of Roxburghshire, the Borders, and their balls were then held in the new assembly room in the Crossed Keys Hotel in Kelso. Now, pretty quickly, within a few years, the membership enlarged, and assemblies of the Caledonian Hunt became really assemblies of the landed gentry of lowland Scotland, and they looked to Edinburgh as a central stage for their social life. Their ball in 1787 was organised in Edinburgh by the Earl of Glencairn, whose portrait you will see downstairs, donated, I might add, by the past chairman of your club. And that is the Walter Scott Club. Be quite careful here. The Walter Scott Club, not the new club. And the Caledonian Club held its first ball in the new assembly rooms to mark their opening. Why is that relevant? In the early hours of the morning of the ball, Lord Glencairn, along with members of the Caledonian Hunt, decided that to enhance the social life of the capital still further, they would form an elite new club devoted to proprietary politeness and good taste. So we have the Good Borders connection that would have eased his membership. Did Scott become an honorary member because of our geographical origins? The club started in 1787 at Shakespeare Square, which then blocked the current east end of Princes Street, and which was partly demolished to allow access to Waterloo Place and a new prison. There we met in Bale's Tavern. Would Scott have known about that? Indeed, he should have done. As I understand, he chose Bale's Bar for his Friday club meetings. Was it because he was a stage manager, already alluded to? Along with David Stewart of Garth, a member of the club, he stage managed the 1822 Royal Visit. And as most of the new club members were members of the Royal Company of Archers, which was given the status of Royal Bodyguard for Scotland during the Royal Visit, and also rather natty tartan tunics designed by Scott, there would be both literary and many other reasons for offering him honorary membership. But he would have known so many members. Henry Cockburn is perhaps one of my favourite members. His portrait by Raeburn sits immediately below us, on the floor below. He was a fellow member with Sir Walter Scott of the Speculative Society. Although Cockburn frequented most of the Edinburgh's many clubs at a time, there's actually no reference to him being a member of this club, although we have his portrait. And I rather like him, as he reminds me of the story of a noble peer who, on being challenged at the Reform Club in London as to whether he was a member, and having used the club's toilets for years and years, expressed surprise that it was a club. He thought it was a public convenience. He would have certainly known the distinguished legal member, Lord Newton, whose portrait by Raeburn again sits in the dining room, who is famous for law, punch, whist, claret and worth, a bulky man with short legs, winking eyes and a large purple visage. Because of his bulk, he was known as Mighty. I like that. It was not enough that he was described also as slumbrous in court, where his head generally rested on either his heaving chest or on his hands across the bench. Oh, for such justice nowadays. Eat your corroborative heart out, Mr. McCaskill. Never mind Henry Dundas, Viscount Melville, elected a member here in 1801. As Lord Advocate, as you all well know, he was almost ruled Scotland for 30 years. There are 7 portraits, or prints, of Lord Melville in the club. Is he as important as Sir Walter? Well, we have 10 prints, busts, or bust, and engravings of Sir Walter dotted around the club, so I suggest he beats Melville. In fact, Sir Walter's monument stands 50 feet taller than Melville's in St Andrew's Square, so my judgment is perhaps agreed with by the people of Edinburgh at the time. Whatever the reason for his honorary membership, and it's pretty obvious, I suggest he was slightly more obvious choice than another honorary member, the next one on the list. James Brooke, Raja of Sarawak and Governor of Her Majesty's settlements on the island of Borneo, who was elected at an extraordinary general meeting in 1847, quite why the records simply don't state. So there we are, a plethora of reasons why this great Scot became an honorary member of the club. Thank you for your club using this club for your dinners, and I hope this carries on for many years to come.